Marketer of the Day, number 462. The Art of Persistence. Grow your business by leaps and bounds, find the bottleneck, and course correct your way to entrepreneurial success with Sarah Shaw. Hey everyone, we're really glad that you're listening with us today. We're talking right now with Sarah Shaw, and Sarah is an entrepreneur, innovator, and designer. You can find out all about her at sarahshawconsulting.com. So Sarah, how are things today?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. So, what are you working on lately, and what's on your mind? What has you fired up?
Well, gosh, all my clients have me fired up these days. We're making all kinds of products, everything from jewelry to skincare products, innovative new shoe accessories, handbags, all kinds of things across the product spectrum. And it's all really exciting. And a lot of people are in manufacturing and production, and I love that.
Okay, great. So is what you do with your coaching clients, like, do you specialize in all this kind of stuff, like the physical products, e-commerce, things like that?
Exactly. Yeah, I've been in the accessory world for about 20 years and got into it really young. and and I've been working. I had my own accessory lines on and off until a couple of years ago, and people started asking for help with to get their, to do with their lines, have what I was able to do with mine. And so I started consulting sort of on the side and found that I really liked it and people really needed my knowledge. And, it was kind of crazy to me. I was like, wow, people really want to pay me to teach them how to do this. And, it just kind of turned into this consulting business. And I've been doing it full time for about 9 years now.
Well, super cool. So I'm really interested in how that kind of got started, how that got rocking and rolling. So, what happened there? You said that you've been doing this for 20 years. You started off by doing this for yourself. So how did that even begin there?
So I work out of college. I went to go work in the film business doing costumes for movies. Sounds really glamorous. Occasionally it was, but most of the time it was a lot of really hard work and long hours. And about towards the end of the 11 years that I worked in film, I had this idea for this handbag, and I was, I didn't know anything about manufacturing or, people think, oh, well, you were in costumes for movies. You must have known everything about making clothes. But I worked in the union and we were not actually allowed to sew. There were sewers, seamstresses and people who did that kind of stuff in the union. So, we just shopped and had clothes made and things like that for the actors. And so when it came time to wanting to make this bag for myself, I was kind of like, wow, I could hem a pair of pants, but that's about the extent of my sewing skills. And so I kind of trial and errored it on my dining room table at night and on the weekends because I had this full-time job that was probably like 65 hours a week and sometimes 80. And I came up with this cute little handbag idea after a few weeks of trial and error, and finally showed it to the costume designer that I had been working with for many years. And, I was kind of tentatively showing it to her, and I was like, please don't tell me if you hate it, And I'd never made anything like that before. I'd never even in my wildest dreams thought that I would ever be an entrepreneur. Even though I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur, I was going to live and die in the film business. That was what I wanted to do. I loved it. But here I was starting my own idea, right? I didn't even think it was going to ever be a business. It was just something I thought I'd do for fun, I guess. I don't even know. And so anyway, she loved it. And we went out to dinner that night and I had the handbag on the counter at a bar. And lo and behold, this woman comes up to us and was like, I love your bag. Where'd you get it? And I think I just looked at her like a deer in the headlights, and my friend pipes up, she's the designer. She made that bag. And this woman turned out to be a buyer for a store, and she just loved the bag, even though she couldn't purchase it for her store because they only imported European designs. But she looked at me and said, you have a really clever bag there. You should move forward and sell this. You're going to be really successful. And so, my costume designer friend is like, I told you, you got to do this. And I really had no idea what to do, so I knew some people downtown in the fashion business and just kind of, asked a friend of a friend of a friend of a neighbor of a cousin of somebody type of thing. It was really a big game of telephone, and finally got some direction from people. And, no one told me what to do. They just kind of said, go talk to the, Joe over there in the corner kind of thing. So it took me months to piece it together. And then I started getting these bags made and kind of toting them around to all the stores in Los Angeles that I had known the buyer. I knew the owners or the buyers for the stores because I shopped for a living. So I was in and out of these stores all the time. And, here I was walking in kind of with my tail between my legs, like, hey, I designed this line of bags. Don't feel obligated to take it. But if you want to take them on consignment, I'd love for you to try it. And they just started selling like hotcakes. And so then I had to get manufacturers because here I was making them at home by myself, probably like 3 a week or something was all I had time for. And it was a real learning experience. I mean, it was kind of down and dirty. Over the next 5 years, I grew this big handbag company and we were selling in over 1,200 stores across the US and every department store. And I was in lots of magazines and I made bags for Julia Roberts in Ocean's 11 and America's Sweethearts. And my bag was in Legally Blonde. And we just did really well. And then 9/11 came along and I had lots of investors at this point. And my investors pulled out after 9/11 and I just couldn't survive without the money. And so I ended up closing that company the following year. And then I went on to patent a closet organizer for handbags and started another company a couple of years later. But in the interim between the two companies, people started calling and asking me to consult with them. Women in Los Angeles who had a handbag company or jewelry company, different accessories. And I started just going to work in these companies for a few months at a time doing consulting. And I really liked it, but never thought of it as a career. And then went on to start this next accessory company that was really successful. I kind of took everything that I had learned in my first handbag company, all the mistakes and, everything that I had like messed up along the way and turned it around, and social media was just starting in 2006. And, everything was really different then than it had been in 97, 98 when I started my handbag company. And so I just was really successful with this second business. It was, we did over $500,000 in sales in our first 2 years with one product in 12 colors, my patented product. And it was just unusually successful. And after that, lots of people started asking me for more consulting advice. And then I just started to kind of move into doing that full time.
Well, super cool. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. And what I like a lot about that whole story there is that it seems like you're in any situation, any point in that story, you were like at a certain point where you did what you wanted to do, but then it's like when that opportunity presented itself, you went for it and it was just like a little bit, but then the more you did more and more of that, the more encouragement you got, whether that was someone supporting you or someone asking you about this. And it kind of sounds like one thing leads to the next. It's not like you like dropped one thing to do another. It sounds like this was all kind of like you had these roadblocks come, you had these obstacles come, and like things like 9/11 happening or there's companies drying up, but it's always like you had the thing that was working for you now, the thing that was in process, and it always sounds like you kind of had both going at the same time. That way it wasn't just like you stopped one to another, like you're always kind of transitioning to the next thing is what I'm hearing here.
Exactly. And I think that that's kind of the linchpin of being an entrepreneur is being able to pivot, right? Oh God, my fabulous idea A totally sucks and it's not generating any money. So whoop, got to switch to, plan B right this second if I'm not going to go out of business tomorrow. And I think that, a lot of entrepreneurs don't have that ability. And it makes it almost impossible to be an entrepreneur if you can't pivot on a dime. And I'm not saying like you go to bed and wake up with some brilliant $5 million idea, but it's that you have to be able to recognize in the moment, hey, what I'm doing is not working, and keep banging, your head against the wall and keep trying to do the same thing differently or better, or, I don't know, I'm going to make more phone calls today. But if you're saying the wrong thing on the phone, you can make 7,000 phone calls in one day. It's not going to change the outcome. So you have to be able to, like if you're doing sales calls and it's not working, you have to be able to stand back and say, okay, what is wrong with my sales pitch? Let me do it on a friend and see if they want to buy my product, preferably someone who doesn't need your product. Like if you sell a girly product, try to sell it to a guy, who can be objective, right? Not a girl who's like, oh yeah, I want it, because then they can't really hear where you're going wrong with your pitch. But, so it's that thing where a lot of entrepreneurs fall into this kind of a conundrum, I guess, where they just keep repeating the same things because they don't either know how to come up with other ideas because they're not working with a coach or a consultant, or they don't have a mentor that they can go ask, or they're not reading the right articles, or they're just too scared to take that plunge, and try something in a different way. But I think that I was most successful because I wasn't afraid to admit that I was wrong, right? Okay, that's not working. Let's move on to plan B, and that's not working either. All right, let's go on to plan C, and just keep going down the list, right? And keeping those ideas fresh all the time, and making sure that you're either on the cutting edge of what's happening, you're following trends, you're looking at your ROI on email campaigns or Facebook ads or whatever you're doing. And you just can't keep beating a dead horse. And I think that it's really important as an entrepreneur to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think that makes a lot of sense there, just as far as like a lot of people out there, especially us entrepreneurs, and especially if we're trying something new, it's really tempting to try to figure out like, well, should I be always switching gears? Should I have all these irons in the fire, so to speak, or should I be focused on one thing and just keep on, like beating a head horse, I think they said there, as far as like keep on trying to think, because it seems like with all these businesses and things we're doing, like sometimes it takes a while to pick up speed, and like you said, sometimes you have to make all these phone calls, or you have to get all these no's before you get the yeses, or have all these like misfires, failures before you get to that sort of your next like milestone, your next break, so to speak. And the thing I'm hearing from what you do differently compared to a lot of other people is that well, number one, it sounds like you seek criticism, so that way it's like you're tough enough, or you're looking for it, that way you're getting it to get better. You're not just kind of letting your feelings get hurt. And then what I'm hearing a lot of also is that you involve other people, that maybe a lot of people out there, they're kind of closed off, they don't really want to get that outside advice, but you're actually seeking for, seeing what a friend says, seeing what a coach says, seeing what people say. So by you involving other people, maybe that's one of the reasons why you leapfrog ahead a lot of others who maybe are just kind of closed off in their own little world, maybe.
Yeah, you hit on a really good point. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, and I was the same way when I was first starting with making my bags, it was all secretive, and I was doing it at night and on the weekends, and I did not tell a soul in case it didn't work out, or in case I was ashamed, or didn't like what I had done, or it looked stupid, or whatever, whatever negativity I could conjure up about it, right? Because I'm trying to talk myself out of it at the same time I'm going forward with it. So I wasn't 100% behind it. But I think that a lot of people stay secretive about things also out of fear, especially now, with how open the internet is. And, if people get afraid, I can't do this until my patent's ready, and what if I can't patent my product? And it's like, well, honestly, I've had a patent, and my patent has been patented over, and my patent's been infringed on, and all these things. And you can't always defend yourself. I mean, if you don't have like $5 million sitting in the bank to defend a patent in court, then there's really no point in even bothering, in my opinion. I mean, you can, so people, I think, get stuck and easily get derailed by these ideas of having to protect themselves, right? There's like this, I'm sure you've read stories about people who, spend 5 years writing the perfect business plan because they think they can't move forward without a business plan. I'm like, business plan, schmizness plan. That's just a whole bunch of pipe dreams, in my opinion. Yes, if you're looking for investors, you have to write something to tell them what your plan is, but it's all really a bunch of BS, because you can't predict, oh yeah, well, Bloomingdale's in 2021 is going to place an order for $250,000. Well, I mean, Bloomingdale's might not even give two hoots about your product. So you're basically just saying, this is my plan, right? This is what I intend to do, because I've taken on investors in my businesses, and I've written business plans. And we've just I was like, my accountant, when he looked at it, was like, are you serious about this? I'm like, I don't have a dang clue. I just have to present something. So he'll give me money. I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I can't even predict. Like, this just seems like a whole bunch of baloney to me. And he's like, well, honestly, they really are. Because unless you have an in and you know that that buyer is going to come and buy your stuff, I mean, really, it's just you saying, this is what I want to happen. So I think people get stuck with, hiding behind a business plan, hiding behind a patent, hiding behind they don't want, to share their idea with people because they're going to get ripped off. Well, I mean, there's a billion ideas out there, and there's actually not that many super new and innovative ideas anymore. It's kind of, a lot of people who create patents are patenting over other people's patents and just kind of improving, right? You go to Starbucks or something and you get a to-go coffee and you think, wow, if we just did this or whatever to the lid, I could make the lid so much cooler. Well, then you go online and you look, or you go and see patents. There's billions of patents that have been filed that have never actually come to fruition to be a product, but people own the patent on it, so no one else can actually make it. Like, they might have tried and failed, but they're not letting the patent go because they've spent all this money and effort to create it. So there's a lot of kind of like dead stock products, right, sitting in the patent office that are just never going to happen, but they're a billion cool ideas. So even if you have a cool idea, you might find that there's already a patent done about it, and you can't even make your cool idea because it's already been taken, right? So I think that with when people come up with an idea, personally, I just say, run with it, be the first one to market, be as fast and strong as you can, be confident, get out there, show people that your product is amazing. When I patented my closet organizer for handbags, nobody had ever seen anything like it before. And I just came up with this random idea, and I was like, wow, I was inventing something for a friend, actually. And then she and I looked at each other, and she was like, you should sell this, And so I was like, oh, what a great idea, but it didn't even occur to me in the moment that anybody else would want it or need it. And so a lot of these amazing ideas come out of necessity, right? You're like, wow, I need this, and let me just make it. And then it turns into some cool product. But if at the same time with that product, even though we patented it, we went to market really fast with it. Like, even before the patent was done, because we didn't even care, and just made it as fast as possible, figured out, how to market it. And it was one of those kind of weird things where you had to send it to stores. Like, let me just send you one. I know you'll like it. I know it's hard to, maybe imagine how it works. We did videos. We were like going all out with everything, showing it with 80,000 different things hanging off of it, and all these different ways to try to market it, because it was it was something people had never seen before. It's probably, like the first umbrella that was ever created or something. People didn't understand how it worked until they stood out in the rain or something. But it was sort of along those lines. And I think that entrepreneurs just need to feel empowered to just be like, hey, I'm going to go and be the best I can be at getting this out there.
Yeah, that's really powerful and that's really inspiring. And I can relate to a lot of what you said, like not in the exact things, but in a lot of the emotion and a lot of the just in general seeing people put silly reasons in front of them, and even being guilty of that myself. Like, I'm sure that you've seen people say, like, I can't start a business because I don't have business cards, or because I
Exactly.
haven't made my Secretary of State registration for my business entity, or like silly things like that. And what I'm hearing a lot from what you're saying is that, well, we need to just try things out, and maybe the thing that we tell ourselves in the moment that is this big, huge reason why we can't do it, if we look back 5 years or 10 years later, then it turns out that was a really silly reason to, it was like the smallest of reasons to not even take that action. And a lot of times, the action that we keep putting off, once we actually do it, it might not even be that great, and it'll lead to action number 2, 3, 4, 5 that is actually the real thing. But a lot of people don't seem to get to our failure number 1, because they keep thinking that that's the finish line, when really that's like one of the first things they need to do. So I'm really curious about, a lot of these stories we're hearing a lot of, that you go out there and you take just like tons and tons of action, or when a lot of people just give up instantly, you go and look for ways to solve that problem or crack that nut? So does this just come naturally to you, or were you always like this, or how do you just take like way more action than anyone else and adjust and not have that fear, the doubt, the uncertainty that a lot of people seem to have?
Oh, it's a blessing and a curse. It actually comes naturally to me. It's funny. I think it's just genetic because my brothers are the same way. I mean, like I mentioned, I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur. All my siblings are entrepreneurs too. So it's like, I think there's no other option in our family. And I think for me personally, a lot of that training, like learning how to hone those skills, came from working in the film business from such a young age. I mean, I graduated from college and I think I was working in film before I was even 22. And I, in the working in the film business, there is no, like no producer or director or anybody you're working for, your superiors, nobody wants to hear no. So I was always taught, and from this young impressionable age, right? I mean, the only other job I'd ever had before that was like working in the bar in college and babysitting. I mean, I'd had really nothing else under my belt. And I was a responsible babysitter, right? And I could pour a drink in a bar, but that was about it. And so I have this, pretty big responsibilities working in the film business. And you're taught from the minute you start there that everything is solvable, right? So there's always a workaround, and that you just go at things until you've exhausted every single possibility, so that when you do go, if you cannot solve the problem or even offer an alternative, right, that you can explain to this higher up person, right, who's probably going to fire you at that point, why you could not do what they asked for. But I mean, luckily I never got into that situation. It was like, if they said we have to have a blue and white striped shirt, and you're like, well, there aren't any left in this entire country, they're all sold out. Well, then go buy the fabric and have it made, So, and if you can't have it made overnight, then you have to tell them, and they might have to change the shooting schedule for the next week. But, I've been on movies where our sets have burned down in the middle of the night, and we had to rebuild the entire movie in 10 days. So there's been all these, these obstacles that came up in my, kind of impressionable young years of working in film that really taught me, I think, the art of persistence. And I do think it's an art. I think, I don't have ADD or anything like that. I am like a straight arrow. And I think it was, I mean, to me, like, I don't know, I don't know that my brothers are exactly the same. They're both highly successful entrepreneurs. So whatever they're doing for their own businesses is working. But I know for myself, like, I watch how I methodically look at what's the next opportunity, right? If the minute I start to come up against a wall, I don't hit the wall, I turn left or right, because that's what I was trained to do in the film business. There is, it's calling every single store, every single catalog, whatever you have to do, right? Buying the fabric, measuring in the middle of the night, whatever it is that you had to do, it had to get done. There was no other option. And so I think I took that into my entrepreneurial life, kind of like when I started my handbags. It was like, for me, it was, oh gosh, this is just some stupid idea, and I'm going to just try it and see what happens. I mean, I literally never thought I would actually really start a business. And it was a boyfriend at the time who dared me, because I kept saying, I have this idea. And then I saw an article in the New York Times one Sunday about this woman who'd started this really ugly handbag line. And there's a full page article about her in the newspaper. So I'm yelling at the newspaper over breakfast, and he's laughing at me. He was an entrepreneur and creative type person. And he was like, well, instead of laughing at this girl and making fun of her, why don't you show her up and make that bag that you've been yapping about for 6 months? And I was like, fine, I'm going to do it. It was one of those moments. And, and I just set my mind to it. And, it was frustrating, and it wasn't as easy for me as the film business, because at that point I kind of knew how to do my job. So it was hard, but it wasn't unknown. I didn't really come into a lot of unknowns anymore. And I'd learned the methods to solve the problems. But then, handbags, I knew nothing about making bags, and it was a whole new world. I mean, I may as well have been a car mechanic. I mean, that's how little I knew about it. And I know nothing about cars except that they run on gas. And so, I think I definitely would attribute it in the long run to my movie business education.
Well, super cool. And what I'm hearing a lot of from you is that it just seems like everyone you've been around is also somewhat of an entrepreneur or somewhat of a problem solver, from the boyfriend, from your family, from the people working in the film business, like as far as like that problem solving mindset. And what I'm hearing a lot of is just that it's really useful and helpful to at the very least be around people like that. Like, it's one thing to pay lip service to that or to learn all the facts and figures, but just being around that kind of energy or being around people like that who also think in that certain way seems super helpful. And then the other thing I'm hearing too is that, well, sometimes in whatever kind of path we're on in our own life, sometimes we'll have some kind of a job or some kind of business or stop in the road where we'll think that, okay, well, this skill I'm learning or this job I have isn't going to pay off later. But a lot of times maybe we pick up certain skills in certain jobs that then pay off later, like that ability to solve problems or to call every store in the catalog that maybe at the time we didn't think that it was helpful to us, but then later on in life we were able to at least do these things, like know how to solve problems or know how to motivate ourselves or how to think about thinking, or all these things. That's kind of what I'm hearing from your story, is that maybe these skills kind of carry on later to different areas in life later on.
Exactly. And I'm so grateful that I had that training. I mean, I have no idea if I would have turned out the same way without it, because that wasn't my life. But when I look back on that tough training that I had, and like sort of this down and dirty education that I got working in film, I do think that it's helped me get to where I am today and have my brain work the way it works.
Yeah, it sounds like it wasn't necessarily easy, but it was fun.
Yes.
Well, super cool. Well, I want to make sure that everyone knows all about you and what you have going on and what people need to check out. So I know you have your consulting and your website. So do you want to mention any of these websites or offers or any place that people should check out after hearing our conversation today?
Yeah, well, you guys can find me at sarahshawconsulting.com. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at Sarah Shaw Consulting. I also, if you're interested in getting your products to celebrities, I have a really amazing, one of a kind, not available anywhere else, Celebrity Confidential video training program. And I will give Robert a coupon code so you guys can get it at half off.
Super great. So do you have the coupon code ready now, or should we just put it in the show notes?
You can put it in the show notes.
All right, super great. And so, I mean, what's your ideal client like? Like you're telling people to go and check out that getting your products to celebrities information, or check out your consulting site. Like, who should be checking out you and your consulting and what you do?
Anybody who's got a physical product, who needs help with marketing it, selling it, making it. If you have some great idea you've been brewing in the back of your head for years and you just didn't know what to do or were too scared to make a move, I help with production, manufacturing, sales, marketing, getting products to celebrities. We help clients get publicity, bloggers to review their products, magazines to write about them. We kind of do everything. And we have all kinds of different DIY. There's a ton of DIY programs starting as little as $47 and going up to maybe $500 or $600. And they're really great programs that if you're dedicated, you can, and you actually do them, you can really learn a lot. And obviously I offer private consulting as well. And you can read all about that on my website.
Well, super great. Once again, the web address for that is sarahshawconsulting.com. And just from hearing your story, it sounds like this is a really important thing people need to get a handle on, because it's easy to let that uncertainty sink in, or to not know what you don't know, or to waste years and years trying to figure out all the nooks and crannies. It sounds like it makes a lot more sense to find a coach, to find someone who's already traveled the way that you want to travel. That way they can tell you all the ins and outs. They can do some of the things for you. They can tell you about things that you hadn't even considered. So really good ideas and really good advice here. And so when people go to sarahshawconsulting.com, and if they want to reach out and tell you about their situation, is there an easy way? Is there like a contact form or a way to book a discovery call, things like that?
Yep, right at the very bottom of our site, there's a contact form. Just feel free, fill it out. Tell me all about yourself. Give me a link to your site or something that I can look at, and I would love to chat with you.
Super great. So we hope that you reach out and chat with Sarah right now today while it's still fresh on your mind. Go to that sarahshawconsulting.com site, find the contact form, and tell Sarah a little bit about your business. If you have that physical product or a creator or just an idea, whatever's going on with you, figure out how she can help, figure out how she fits into your business, and get your product out there, get noticed, and get your business scaled and moving forward. So I want to thank you so much, Sarah, for stopping by and sharing your great story and sharing your thought process, your ups and downs, all that fun stuff. It's always great to hear about that, those sort of adventures.
Oh, it was great to be here with you today, Robert.
Please subscribe, rate, and review our show at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes, and like us on Facebook at marketeroftheday.com/Facebook.